Every character, location, or experience you've read about in my crime fiction novels holds a piece of reality. I'm Helen Taylor. Welcome to the story behind my stories, the video podcast where crime fiction meets my authentic experience. Here, we delve into the real-life inspirations and intimate stories that shaped my novels. Discover how my everyday encounters, adventures, and travels translate into tales as gripping as they are genuine. The story behind my stories goes behind the words on the page to reveal the backstory that inspires my writing. Hit follow or subscribe and ensure you're part of this journey. Hi, welcome to season 6 of the story behind my stories, and this is the story behind Die Trying, and that is out next week. So this is a pre-launch episode, and I just wanted to start off the season with explaining how rugby came into my life for me to be able to write a crime fiction book. So I thought I'd dress for the occasion and I'm wearing one of my rugby tops. And this season, this story behind is about rugby, and there is a blog post which will actually go out today, but you'll be watching or listening to this episode in 2 days' time. And there'll be another blog post next week, which brings in some of the ethos of rugby. But let me go back to the beginning and tell you that my contact with rugby before 2024 had been fleeting, shaped by two Welshmen. Welsh rugby, yeah, that tracks, hey. The first was when I was doing my A-levels, which we are now talking was late 80s. And my physics teacher was a massive rugby fan, and he used to teach us mechanics, and he used the trajectory of a rugby ball kicked by Ian Evans at Cardiff Arms Park to teach us mechanics. It was always, and Ian Evans has kicked the ball from here. What trajectory is it? What velocity is it going at? What height? How's gravity acting on it? You know, all of that was my first introduction to this game of rugby. And the lessons he taught stayed with me long after. He was almost, you know, the first thing of what I'm trying to do here is, you know, based on experience. And I think learning, whether it be physics or how to write a book or anything that you choose to learn, if you can relate it to your life or real life, then it's easier. So, yes, that was my physics teacher. And then the second was a Welshman I dated in the 1990s. His name was Dominic, and I'm trying to think how I met him. I worked with him. Worked with him up in London, actually. But I found myself watching matches in a Twickenham pub when they were playing up the road, or Cardiff Arms Park, or anywhere else. Back then, it was the Five Nations. And it was clear how much Welsh rugby pride meant to Dominic. And then I never came into contact with rugby again or had any thoughts or inclinations. I have been in a club environment doing rowing, but not rugby, and never football. I do remember actually when I was rowing and the World Cup was on that we went to a pub and England just lost. And I could see people sat outside, guys crying openly. I can't remember what, it would have been around the mid-90s. And I got the connection because of rowing, and that was all the time when Steve Redgrave was big, and winning us gold medals all over the place. But rugby's different. Rugby is different. But I didn't know that then. So then I met Ben, my partner, who, if you follow me on socials, you will have seen, and he is in the montage if you're watching this on video. We met in 2024. He was 59, I was 54. One of the things that really drew me to him was the passion with which he spoke about rugby. I understood, as I say, from being a rower, the bond of teamwork and the way sport demands specific skills or a lifestyle that outsiders can rarely grasp. But the way Ben spoke about rugby compared to rowing or football or anything else, it was different. It was deeper. It was more enduring. He didn't take up rugby until he was 35, but it's so entrenched in him. And I think the big thing that seemed to strike me was I had been excluded from rowing from when I was very ill around that time. And I was surprised by the inclusion he still felt long after, playing full contact was over for him. He was 59. He'd played all of it: Union, League, Sevens, Tens, 15s, big hockey player before rugby. And one of the things that attracted me to him is he carries himself with the rough, tough aura of someone forged on that hard contact version of the sport. But age and injury had changed his path, and he'd snapped his ACL, which you will have known I did, but he'd snapped his a couple of years earlier. And he could no longer play contact rugby. Instead, he strapped it up and played walking rugby. And when he first told me he played walking rugby, I was like, yeah, okay, that's not rugby, is it? Which is proof that even without an ACL, the game is still has a place. And I was amazed that walking rugby even existed. And that an ex-hardcore rugby player would even entertain a non-contact, slower version. Something, rugby's famously aggressive and dangerous. But he did, and he introduced me to that. I went and watched him play a festival at Burgess Hill, and I was very welcomed by the Isha walking rugby team who he played for. The atmosphere of the festival and just the joy of seeing this new guy that I was dating light up when he was on the pitch. Um, it it reminded me in part of my rowing days, but it's just different. It is really different. Um, and I've started to see the appeal. Um, and all the guys were encouraging me to play it myself. And the thing with walking rugby is that women and men play together. They're not separated like other forms of rugby. So I went down and I joined him at the next session. And at first, as an outsider, I definitely thought rugby was rough, all in sport, brute force over brain. Um, not so technique and mental. Uh, so for him, I went to try it out, not expecting to enjoy it because I thrive on intellectual stimulation and a physical challenge through strength and fitness, not punishing contact. Which obviously I knew the contact didn't exist in the walking version, but it was so completely different. I was so wrong. Um, it demands mental strategy, hand-eye coordination, physical stamina. It was exactly the sort of challenge that I loved. So that was my introduction into the rugby world. And that was uh, one of the things that I I found with the walking rugby lot. That was my main contact for probably the first 4 or 5 months was just the walking rugby lot. Um, and whilst some people were found it harder to accept another woman, uh, the welcome and the interest in me and the encouragement and the skills training and everything that the guys at Isha Rugby Club um, brought to every session that I went to was phenomenal. Uh, and everybody doing the walking rugby had a reason why they couldn't do contact, whether it was ACLs or too old, too broken. We had heart people, lung people, all sorts of illnesses and everything that prevented them from playing normal rugby. But apart from the game, and it is something that it's like it runs in their blood. Not just the game, but the banter. And some people may find it difficult. Rugby is still, it's not chauvinistic, but it gives that impression. Particularly in the modern age where women want more autonomy and so rugby feels more traditional. But there is that old saying, isn't there, that rugby is played Football is played by gentlemen and watched by hooligans, and rugby is played by hooligans and watched by gentlemen. That does it does describe on the pitch. They're aggressive. They're rough. They're think nothing of going out and playing in the freezing cold, the soaking wet, the mud, everything, and smashing into each other and bone crunching, weight, all of it. Yet off the pitch, I can honestly say I've never met a group of, and I'm talking men in particular here, I've never met a group of men who are so considerate, um, gentle, gentlemen, and they're gentlemen. I open the door for you. That always let me walk first. And it is just something in the build of rugby players, in my experience, this is. And I have played for Isha, but I've played at festivals and met other people from other teams, and later on we'll talk a little bit about Grenada. But yeah, I mean, my experience and has all shown that nature of those people. And I can honestly say that the welcome I had into the rugby world was warmer than a welcome I have ever had anywhere, whether it be a job, a club, a gym, I don't know, anywhere else that you might go and expect to be welcomed. Rugby has been the most welcoming from the men, for sure. um, from the majority of women too. There was some issues with certain women, but on the other hand, Burgess Hill is run by a woman, Sarah, and went on tour with them twice, went up to Twickenham and watched several rugby matches with them, and they have a predominantly female team, and they've been nothing but welcoming. And Judith at Isha, nothing but welcoming. And then I do find myself, even now this is done and written and out next week, wondering how I could make such an unlikely criminal sport experience club have a murder, or at least an attempted murder. But I will go into that in future weeks. But for now, go and check out the blog post about Rugby Welcome, and pre-order your copy ready for next week, and make sure you tune in to the episode next week on launch day, and we will discuss a little bit more about how you could set a crime in a place that just doesn't feel like rugby. So please subscribe, follow, tune in next week. Head over to my website, check out Die Trying, and keep watching, listening, and read the blog and see how the story behind Die Trying develops.